Hello, everybody. Good afternoon or good morning, depending on where you are. Welcome to the InduSoft webinar. My name is Fabio Teresino. I'm responsible for product management and consulting services with InduSoft. And today we have the privilege of having John Parsons from Edge Systems, the president of PML Exploration Services, presenting one product that we developed along with PML called the Edge System. And I have been working with John for many, many years and learned a lot from him, and he's a good friend as well, and knowledgeable about drilling systems, oil and gas industry in general. And I'm thrilled that he accepted to co-host this webinar with us and share a little bit of his experience and demonstrate the Edge system to us. So again, thank you everybody for joining the conference. And having said that, I'll pass control to John. And John, thank you very much. And feel free to start whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Fabio. Yes, we've worked with Fabio and InduSoft on this particular product for about 5 years, and before that we developed some gas turbine and compression systems when I was with a previous company. And I have to say that their software and their support has been very good over the years. So looking at the screen, the PowerPoint, if I can get it started here. What I thought I'd do is give you a quick overview of our objectives for the project. Our foremost thing was we wanted to increase the availability of information for our clients. Historically, a lot of the data is collected at the rig and then is not readily made available to people either in the office or when they're out of their office at their home, or if they're traveling on mobile devices, and we wanted to get that information to them so they could use it any time they wanted to. Our second objective was to increase the reliability of our system and to reduce any downtime we had should something fail in the field. We wanted to also provide a flexible level of service to our clients, ranging from very basic gas analysis and perhaps lithology as well, through to more advanced gas systems. We also wanted to provide the ability to monitor the drilling of the well itself, and then finally to provide a geosteering project, which is still on our to-do list. And finally, we wanted to reduce the capital cost of our system and also its operating costs. What are our key decisions when we started off this project? We decided that our core competence was in developing process control systems dealing with hazardous environments at the rig. So we effectively developed all of the PLC real-time code using IEC 61131. We developed the gas analyzers, the chromatography, and obviously provided all the system specifications to InduSoft for the web-based product and for the server. And InduSoft then went away and wrote all the applications using their toolkit for the system. So that's in a nutshell how we broke the work up and specified the system. Here's just a quick view of the overall scope of the product. We basically can put the system on an unlimited number of rigs, transmit the system, the data back from the rig via satellite, or in fact these days we can use cell phones in many, certainly not all, but many cases we can use a cell phone link to move the data back to a central server, and then from the central server out to clients either in their offices or, as I mentioned earlier, on iPhones or whichever brand of phone you might have or tablet you might have. So we certainly have achieved that goal of high availability to customers, and we continue to add more applications to the system. We do use other third-party software to deliver some of our products at the moment, and the goal is to move all of those onto the InduSoft platform as time permits and based on customer request. The next diagram is a brief look at the type of sensors and systems that we acquire data from, and some of the sensors you could acquire data once a minute and it would be plenty fast enough. There are other sensors where we should be acquiring and do acquire the data at 1 kilohertz. We've been working on torque and drag software recently, and we're using 1 kilohertz to acquire data for it. Chromatography, we acquire data at about 25 hertz. So lots of different speeds of acquisition. I guess my recommendation there would be when you pick a PLC provider or a data acquisition module provider, make sure that they have plenty of flexibility in acquisition speed and data processing. And I think that's been a key item. We were very fortunate in finding a local U.S. company that was prepared to work with us to acquire the data however and whenever we wanted to. So there's a brief overview of the product, and with that I'll drop back into the product itself. Perhaps I'll start with how we set the system up and acquire data. At the rig, we don't have a bunch of graduate engineers or highly skilled technical people. So what we did was design a human interface that was very easy to understand, and what you're seeing in front of you now is the screen by which we import information into our system, either from our own sensors or from sensors from third party. And at the very top, you can see we can acquire data from the rig control system, the measurement while drilling folks. We can export out to various third-party logs if we need to, and we can acquire data from miscellaneous equipment. In this case, it's labeled XRF, which is a type of analyzer that looks at the individual rock properties in terms of elements and analyzes the data from there. So we can bring in lots of streams of data, and as you turn these on, up here in this right-hand corner here, these turn red or green depending on whether the data is correct and identified via the protocols that typical oil field companies use to transfer data. We also can decide where individual comes from, whether it comes from us again or individual third parties, and each individual parameter is also color-coded as a pass or a fail. And the actual methodology of importing data into our system is actually quite an old standard, and so we came up with custom labeling and channels, and we can determine how we name them and how the data is imported using a custom import mechanism. So that's bringing data in. On the left-hand side, we have what we call tree view, and at the root, basically, I'll run through this. You can have multiple service companies using our system, ourselves or other service companies, and that data or those companies can then have different energy companies they work for, and each one of those can be secured individually. And the reason we did this, say Service Company 1 and Service Company 2 both have Devon as a client, then we can secure this client so that only they can see information from those service companies, and each service company can't see the other people's wells. So, and we can secure things down to the well level and the user level. And here you can see for example, service company 1, this user, Mr. Super User here, cannot see any of these wells from these clients. So we have complete control and security down to the individual person level and the individual well level. That took quite a lot of program, I would say, by InduSoft to get that done, but it works great. It's a bit lengthy when we set up a new customer, but it does supply excellent security. And if I now go down to an individual well, you can see the product again working. One of the things we wanted to achieve for reliability was to be able to directly control our gas analyzers from an iPhone or an iPad or whatever device you might use. And so what we're able to do is calibrate, for example, the instrument. So if there's some question whether our chromatograph is working properly or there's been some incident at the rig, we can verify our units working. If I take control via the test valve here and hit the calibration button, I'm now injecting calibration gas into the chromatograph, and I'm going to recalibrate it, and then I can come across to my gas setup screen. If this was hooked to one of our chromatographs, you'd see the chromatograph diagram here, and we'd be able to verify that it's functioning properly. That's really useful in terms of minimizing downtime. We can immediately see what the issue is, and quite often we can resolve it without leaving the shop. And if there is something wrong with it, we can very rapidly get out to the rig and replace the broken component because we know exactly what it is. Our reliability right now is running at 99%. So we rarely have to go out to the rig to service our equipment or software once the jobs are running. We also have some preventative maintenance techniques, and this area here we can tell from the response of the sensors how aged they are, and once they are aged to a point where they won't last to a following well, we can pull those components during the rig move and replace them and avoid any breakdowns. And that's been a significant, say, from about 70% to 99% in terms of reliability from the customer perspective. And it's also saved us a lot of money in terms of unplanned service scores. So it's a win. It's a win from both sides of the service provider or service receiver. Looking at the product itself, this is a typical drilling screen. Here you can see the depths as the wells incremented. On the right here is the lithology as we see it from the microscope once we've evaluated the rocks. And these chart channels here are showing any of the parameters that we're storing in a database. The database is a classic SQL database. In this particular case, we've picked some gas values from the chromatograph and the total gas to display. Each of these channels, as I said, there can be any parameter. You can auto scale. You can change pen colors. You can go back and look at previous data, historical data, by changing time here. You can change the duration of how long you're looking at data. So it's a very flexible chart recorder. It's really the standard InduSoft product turned 90 degrees, so it works vertically for typical rig use. It's extremely robust. We haven't had any issues with it over the years. We also have a classic chart recorder where there's just 4 channels, and this time there's no drilling data. So that's a quick view of chart recording. The main screen itself has, again, this is a chromatograph chart. At the top we have chromatogram data, instant chromatogram data running across the top. Now this is simulated data, by the way, it's not real information, so my apologies if some of the numbers are a little unusual, but And these little -997s are error codes, so we know we're not getting real data. But we get all the drilling information under pump information here, and this is all the lag information telling us information how long is it taking the rocks and the gas to get to the surface once the bit has cut the rock, and how many strokes the pumps need to make to get information to the surface. In order to determine what the lag time is to get the rock and gas data to the surface, we have to calculate two things. The first one is how big's the hole, and you basically enter all the information about the drill string and the casing in this area here. You can import the pipe tally as it's known from the rig data, or you can manually fat finger it in if you're patient. And there's a heavyweight pipe here, and at the bottom is the drill collars. And these are all depicted over here in this little mimic diagram. Rock bit, drill collars. I don't have any heavyweight, so this is drill pipe. And this is representation of the casing. There's also room to implement liner if you're in a well where they've run liner below the casing. All those things go together to work out the volume of the hole. And then this particular screen, you usually see 2 or 3 pumps on a rig, and this allows you to define who made the pump, which model is it, and what's the liner size, and this tells you how much volume the pumps are pumping for each stroke of the pump. We track the pump strokes and how fast the pump's running, and from that we can move that volume of mud in the hole around the well. And from there, we know exactly how long it takes for the rocks and the gas to get to surface. And once the information at the surface is read by our analyzers, we then enter that into the system as a lag value, as it's known, and then we correlate the time lag data with the real-time data and produce the mud log. So quite a lot goes into tracking everything. We do have an alarm system, and I quite like this alarm tracking system from the perspective we can find out if we had any problems on the well subsequently or during an emergency when something's going wrong. We can see what's happened recently. The upper screen is cancelable, so once the alarm goes away, it disappears from our record, and this one is a permanent record of what's going on, and that's very useful when you try and diagnose what goes wrong. It's also useful for a customer because they can go and see if our system's operating as it should, so it's a good check for them to make sure our service quality is as advertised. The data editor tracks all the information before it's transferred to the server, and this is a local SQL database. There are 2 versions, an editable version and a permanent record, so in case something goes wrong or some incorrect editing goes on, we can always retrieve that data and go back to the original. There are various buttons here that allow you to edit the data, or you can simply export the data out to an Excel spreadsheet, edit it in Excel, and then re-import it back in. So it's pretty flexible in terms of being able to edit the data. We transfer the data from the local database. Firstly, the raw data or the drilling data in real time, and we settled on once every 6 seconds to transfer the data, real-time data. And that's about as fast as you want all those meters you saw earlier to flash and change. We did originally have it running at 1 second, and wasn't a good idea. It's too fast. And then the bulk data, we FTP transfer over the satellite link, and it works out about once a minute. We store the information about the well once per foot and once per minute, and that seems to be plenty fast enough for this particular industry. The system, I think, could certainly run faster than that, but we don't need to. Anything that's running faster than that, like chromatography, torque and drag calculations, things like that, is all handled locally and then transferred over at the slower rate. The database would just grow enormously, and would not much benefit if we say store data once every 10 seconds or something like that. So it's a quick view of the database itself, and quick look at the mud log. Apologies for this, isn't a particularly well populated mud log. In fact, that's not populated at all. If I scale them over to 500 feet. So, okay. So here's some typical mud log data. Basically, all of these tracks that you see here are all configurable in terms of what goes into them and how they are sized vertically. It's very simple to reorganize the curves and say what's in each pen on each curve. You can see here, this one is C1 lag, methane lag. But again, you can pick anything that's in our database. So here's a list of choices that you could put in that channel, but basically, if it's in the database, you can put it in there. And again, we're using this InduSoft standard charting tool, so you can pick colors of pens, how you want point to point to draw in, what type of line you want, how heavy you want it, things like that. So again, we're just using standard tools within the InduSoft package. The lithology is a specially developed component for edge systems and PML. You have choices on how the lithology is drawn. It can be drawn along the drill line as a portion of this particular plot in this area, or it can be drawn, as I've shown it here, as taking 100% of the track up. It mimics other mud logging software that's out in the field from 2 or 3 different suppliers. We picked the components that we thought were the most important, put them in this package, and we'll be releasing this particular piece of the software in a few months, maybe 2. So it has a little bit more work to go. To export the data out to third-party software, we have a fairly simple process of selecting parameters you want to export, and you can move them up and down using these buttons, so you can change the order in which they occur. And it's you can export using the time for like a drilling report, or you can have it depth-based for lithology and so forth. And once you've decided what you want to export, and you want to export it as an LAS, you just hit the button, select where you want it saved on your computer, and you're done. These types of exports and imports, and in fact all the charts, are configurable for each individual user. So you could have, say, 3 clients in one office who all want to have their charts configured a separate way, or they want a different export for a different reason into whatever they're focused on. And they can be configured to the customer's needs. Every screen in here has online help, and it's all context sensitive. So if I hit application help, there is text to explain what each button does and what process to go through to set the system up. Typically, what we find is we go in to see the client, and we set it up for them, and then once they get used to the package, they take on more and more individually as time goes on. A lot of the information help is perhaps more for service technicians with how to calibrate sensors, that sort of thing. Okay, so that's a pretty fast run through the system. There are other drilling screens for pit levels and monitoring pit levels and alarming systems for drilling and mimicking what's going on a drill rig, so people know what's going on. And these screens, you just can go from well to well. We have a lot of new ideas to add to this system, adding to that mud log for geosteering and putting other geosteering tools in there, putting multiple wells into the system. We have a basic directional building system right now. You can see it's just 2D. We expect to change this and make it 3D and add things like collision avoidance software to it as time goes on. And we also have already finished in it things like picking surveys based on the status of the MWD tool and the pumps, so you can get more accurate steering of a well. So I think that's pretty much the 10-cent run through the package. There are some custom items that InduSoft have added to this package for us. They're good at listening to our requirements and getting them done for us. But the basic package itself is also very flexible and pretty capable, and we're glad we picked InduSoft. So back to you, Fabian.
Thank you very much, John. I do appreciate. Thanks for the overview. And now we will open for questions. If you have any questions, please use the webinar, the WebEx bar at the top of your monitor, and feel free to type your question either on the chat box or in the Q&A box that's available on the WebEx bar on the top of your monitor as well. So the first one is, I have a question. What kind of InduSoft objects are shown in this page? I believe you were on the mud logging page. That's a standard trend control from InduSoft Web Studio. As you know, the trend control is quite flexible in InduSoft Web Studio. You can change orientation to horizontal, vertical. You can also display data not only based on time, but also based on other numeric values. So in the mud log, the data is typically displayed based on the depth of the well. And another feature, native feature in the product, is the ability to fill the area below the pens on the trains with either a color or even a pattern. So when John goes to the horizontal lithology in the mud log there, each one of those different soil types are a different pen with a particular pattern, with a particular picture below the pen. And the product automatically displays, fills the area below the pens with those pictures and tiles them side by side so it looks like a pattern. And each one of them is just a pen in an XY plot. And through the configuration screens, the engineer can pretty much select the different types of soils, which translate into particular pictures, JPEGs, PNGs, BMPs in the project, and define the coordinates for each one of the soils, which translates in how the pens should be plotted on the trend control. So it's a long answer, and the short answer is this object is a standard trend control from InduSoft Web Studio. And John is demonstrating there how they can pick different types of soils and see the pictures for each one of them. And it automatically changes the filling, the pattern below the curve, and allows you to create those kind of XY mud log kind of charts. Thank you, John, for the online demonstration. Any other questions? There is another question, which is it possible to visualize those screens from a remote computer? And John, I think 99% of the times when you use those screens, you visualize them remotely from a web browser, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, so the whole graphical interface in the application is available to be visualized from what we call remote web sync clients. So using a remote computer with Internet Explorer, users can visualize the information from this system. Not only visualize, but interact with the system.
Yeah, now there's no difference in control of our software. Assuming you have security and proper access to the system, whatever you can do on a PC, you can also do on an iPhone or a tablet device or whatever. There's no real difference.
Very good. John, another question is, what is the cloud infrastructure that you are using? I know at the beginning of the project, we are hosting the multi-tenant server system on Rackspace, and I believe recently you moved it to a different server, correct, John?
It's still on Rackspace for probably another month, and then we'll be moving it across to Amazon.
Very good. And the nice thing from the software point of view, migrating the application is literally copying the application files to the new virtual server and installing the InduSoft Web Studio and the SQL Server database in the new virtual server. So it's quite portable as well to port the application to a different system. There are a few settings, IP addresses that we can customize. But obviously, we do not have to redesign the whole system to move the application to a different server. Let me check for more questions. This one is repeated. There is one question here. How do you go through firewalls in each one of the sites? Pretty much, this was part of the learning curve in the system as well. The original version of the system, we had the server pulling each one of the remote sites, and we had the type of problems that I think you're inferring here in your question. And eventually, we modified the product and the project, so each one of the sites can access the central server on the clouds. So we do not require any more inbound connections from the server to each one of the remote well sites. Each one of the well sites make an outbound connection to the central server and push data to the server. So it helped us to avoid having to do any kind of customizations on the security settings of each site to allow inbound connection from the server to each one of the sites. And another question is, are you able to send text messages with alarms? And the product has the ability to send remote notification by email or text messages. And John, correct me if I'm wrong, in the alarm interface, you can even configure on the fly the alarm conditions and the email addresses or phone numbers that will receive remote notification, correct?
Yes, we can do that. It's one of those things we thought would be very popular, but not many people use it. But yes, it is there.
Got it. I think I went through the list of questions. We have a new one here. One question is, have you considered cybersecurity in your installation? What safeguards you use? Yes, cybersecurity is always a point of concern in any system, especially a multi-tenant cloud-based system like this one. And we could host another webinar just to talk about cybersecurity, but the main things here are about the user interface, create user interfaces that prevent injection of SQL commands, for example, encrypting the protocol between the thin clients and the server through SSL, so all the communication between the server and the thin clients is encrypted, making all the security decisions on the server, so whenever the client needs to log on or decide if a particular well or interface is available or not, all the decisions are made on the server, not on the client, so it makes much harder for someone to impersonate. On the database itself, everything is password protected. Everything requires authentication. And there are things that we enhanced during the project, like I mentioned before, the outbound connections from the site to the server instead of requiring or allowing inbound connection from the server to the site, making it even more secure. Each one of the sites where you have the actual equipment in the well, and allowing you to configure the more strict rules in the firewall for each one of the sites, preventing external attacks. So there are several different aspects of the system that we're taking into consideration from a cybersecurity point of view. So I think we have gone through all the questions. John, do you have any extra considerations or anything to add to my comments?
No, I think you covered it very well. And yeah, I think the main thing for us is that we as we continue to mature this product, we find more applications to develop. I don't think we've hit the limit of what the InduSoft products can do so far. Security being one, and flexibility of the recording programs and so forth. So no, we're pretty happy with the way things have gone. We wish we could spend more money on development, but so we could develop things faster, but we can't. But so I don't know who is in the audience today, but there's certainly a lot more development to be done yet, and we can add a lot more features. So if there's any customers out there that see something missing, don't be afraid to call us and ask. Pretty sure we can add pretty much anything anybody wants. So one of the things that we are focused on today is adding a lot more geochemistry capability to the package, and we will have some more things to show at the AAPG in April. So if anybody wants to drop by and chat to us at the AAPG in Houston, we'll be happy to see you there.
Excellent, and that's a very good point as well, John. This is a live product, an evolving product, and it's actually an application built on top of an off-the-shelf product, which is InduSoft Web Studio, but there is a lot of knowledge there, not only about software, but about the process itself, which is knowledge from PML. So that's the main value, in my opinion, in the system, is the knowledge that PML brought to the design of this package. And as a solution, we offer that as a user-friendly interface to customers that that do drilling and need a system to monitor the process. So, John, once again, thank you very much for your time. I do appreciate you taking the time to share your knowledge and your experience and demonstrate the Edge system with us. And I would like to also thank very much for every and each one of you to attend this webinar. I hope it was useful and met your expectations, and hope to see you again in the next InduSoft webinar. Thank you, everybody, and have a great evening or great day. Thank you.
Thanks, everyone. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.